Did you ever wonder why you can't recall certain life events or have gaps in your memory? I wondered that myself. Hi, my name is Renda Smith with Renspire Life Coaching. Today I want to talk about dissociative disorders. Now remember, I need to caution that dissociative disorders need to be diagnosed by a mental health professional. So let's talk about dissociative disorders. The DSM-5 has several different types of dissociative disorders, and the most common that are diagnosed are dissociative amnesia, depersonalization disorder, and the most severe is dissociative identity disorder. So let's talk about some of the symptoms for dissociative disorders. And those would be a significant memory loss to specific times, people, or events. It's having an outer body experience, such as though you're watching yourself in a movie. Mental health problems such as anxiety, depression, or thoughts of suicide. And I do want to say one thing about that is if you are suicidal or having suicidal ideations, please seek help. You can contact your local emergency personnel and get the help. You're not alone in this, and there is hope. So know that you have options. Another symptom in a dissociative disorder is a sense of detachment from your emotions or emotional numbness. And it's also having a lack of self-identity. So dissociative symptoms depend on the type of the disorder that's been diagnosed. And again, I remember that you need to be diagnosed by a mental health professional. So in the criteria for the DSM-5, the first one is dissociative amnesia. And that is that the main symptom is difficulty remembering important information about oneself. Dissociative amnesia may surround a particular event, such as combat, abuse, or more rarely, information about identity and life history. So the onset for an amnesic episode is usually sudden, and an episode can last from minutes to hours to days, or rarely for dissociative amnesia, months or years. There's no average age for onset or percentage, and a person may experience multiple episodes throughout their life. Okay, so that's dissociative amnesia. Depersonalization disorder involves ongoing feelings of detachment from actions, feelings, thoughts, and sensations as if they were watching a movie. And that's the depersonalization part. And sometimes other people and things may not feel real, and the things in the world around them are unreal. And that's derealization. So within the depersonalization disorder, there's depersonalization and derealization. A person may experience depersonalization or derealization, or both. So you can have one or the other or both. And the symptoms can just be a matter of moments or return at times over the years. The average onset is 16. The average age of onset is 16. Although depersonalization episodes can start anywhere from early to mid-childhood, less than 20% of people with this disorder start experiencing episodes after the age of 20. So if you experience depersonalization where things don't feel real, that's like the whole imaginary kind of thing with little kids, and it happens when there's a lot of traumatic events. And the most severe is dissociative identity disorder, and that's formerly known as multiple personality disorder. And this disorder is characterized by altering between multiple identities, and the person may feel like one or more are trying to have control in their head. So they hear voices, and they often fight within themselves. And often these identities may have unique names, characteristics, mannerisms, and voices. And people with dissociative identity disorder may experience gaps in memory of day-to-day events, personal information, and trauma. Women are more likely to develop dissociative identity disorder because they are more frequently present with acute dissociative symptoms, and men are more likely to deny the symptoms and their trauma histories, so they exhibit more violent behavior rather than amnesia or fugue states, right? So women depersonalization or derealization or develop dissociative identity disorder more often than men because men deny the symptoms and they take out their emotions in other ways. So what causes dissociative disorders? They usually develop as a way to deal with trauma. Our brains are wonderful little organs because what they do is they take the trauma and they compartmentalize it, and then we have no recollection of it. But then the problem is that we often never deal with the trauma, but we have that memory of it, because we have an association somewhere in the world, and then we run back because our brain's like a filing cabinet, and our brain runs back and grabs that memory and associates with the present time. Dissociative disorders most often form in children exposed to long periods of physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. Natural disasters and combat can also cause dissociative disorders. It is like a severe PTSD response. So let's talk more about dissociative amnesia because that's more common and probably underdiagnosed than any of the dissociative disorders. And the information lost that is that of what would be normal of conscious awareness that would be described as audiobiblic memory. Although the forgotten information may be inaccessible to consciousness, it sometimes continues to influence the behavior, right? So remember me talking about the influence, our brains being a filing cabinet and associating an event, right? So an example of this is that a woman who was raped in an elevator refuses to ride an elevator ever again, but she doesn't recall the rape. Okay, that is an example of dissociative amnesia. You know you don't want to do it, but you don't know why. Okay, you can't recall why, but you refuse to do it. Dissociative amnesia probably is underdetected. Prevalence is not well established, and the amnesia appears to be caused by traumatic and stressful experiences endured or witnessed, right? So you can go through it or you can even have witnessed trauma happening around you. The main symptom of dissociative amnesia is memory loss that's inconsistent with normal forgetfulness. So it's not like, oh, I can't remember where I put my keys, or why did I come into the room. It's more severe than that. And the amnesia may be localized, it may be selective, or it could be generalized. Rarely is dissociative amnesia is it accompanied by purposeful travel or bewilderment wandering, and those are called fugue states. So very rarely fugue states happen with dissociative amnesia. So localized amnesia involves being unable to recall a specific event or a specific period of time. These gaps in memory are usually related to trauma or to stress. So an example of that is somebody may forget for months or years of being abused as a child or the days they spent in intense combat. And the amnesia may not manifest for hours, days, or longer after the traumatic period, right? So you may be in combat or you may have experienced child abuse, but at the time, it's like you were taking that information and filing it away and you didn't remember it for a period of time. Usually the forgotten time period, which can range from minutes to even decades. It's it's clearly demarcated, right? So there's no really set time of when when it's recalled, right? So like people who are in therapy, all of a sudden they recall being sexually abused as a child, and they don't trust those memories, but then they go back and they check with their family, or they talk to somebody that knew what happened, and then they find out that that's exactly what it was. Well, that period of time that you had no recollection of the sexual abuse, that's the dissociative amnesia state, okay? So then there's selective amnesia, and that involves forgetting only some of the events around. So it's about forgetting some of the events. So you might remember who it was that abused you, but you don't recall what led up to it, or you don't recall what you're wearing, or the other people that are around, or if anybody knew, or if you told anybody. That's selective amnesia, but you know that the event happened. That's selective amnesia. In generalized amnesia, people forget their identity and life history. So like who they are, where they went, who they spoke to, what they did, that's a generalized amnesia, and that's more associated, it's a severe type of dissociative amnesia, but it's more also to people with DID experience that. They don't have recollection of time, right? It's commonly referred to as losing time. Most people are partly or completely unaware that they have gaps in their memory, and they become aware only when personal identity is lost or when circumstances make them aware. So like when others tell them that a certain event happened. Clients seeing shortly after they become, after they have an amnesic state, may appear confused. So people who and I say this, people who have DID only because, and I'm going to refer to that too because I've experienced it. So they appear confused because, like for me, I would end up places and not know exactly how I got there, and so that was a confusion, right? Luckily, there is hope for those who do get diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, as I was. You can work your butt off in therapy, and you can merge the identities, okay? And I know that it can happen because I did it. So there is hope for that too, is you don't have it for the rest of your life. Some people report flashbacks, and this is an occurrence with the post-traumatic stress relating to and it's all mixed in there together. The post-traumatic stress, the complex PTSD, and the dissociative states. It's all mixed in there together. Flashbacks may alternate with amnesia for the contents of the flashbacks. Some people develop PTSD later on, especially when they become aware of the traumatic or stressful event. So you may not be diagnosed with PTSD, but then you start having, you come out of the dissociative amnesia and you remember events of being abused as a child, and you might then develop PTSD, okay? Depressive and functional neurological symptoms are common, as are suicidal and other self-destructive behaviors. So cutting, self-sabotage in any way, overeating, drinking, becoming an alcoholic, those behaviors also become increased. Let's see, what else? So let's talk about the time loss, right? So in dissociative states, people may discover that they put things in their shopping cart that they normally wouldn't put in there. Your handwriting may be different. They may find yourself in a different place than where you last remember being. They're unaware of the amnesia. Some people are aware of the amnesia and then they try to hide it, and then others are very unaware of it. And then when it's noticed by others, people can't remember things that they've said or done, or important personal information such as their name. And that's really that's a severe form of dissociation. So, I think that's to sum it up, dissociative amnesia is the least, dissociative amnesia is about losing, it's more than just normal forgetfulness. It's, sometimes dissociative amnesia can happen when you don't recall a person's name, but you know who they are. So that's a form of dissociative amnesia. One of the studies that I read talked about someone who had overdosed on medications, and when they ended up at the hospital, they asked him if he took anything, and he denied it. But all the tests had indicated that he had, and so they ended up pumping his stomach. And then when he returned home, he found the empty pill bottle, but he doesn't remember taking the medication, why he took it, why that he took so many as he did. So that is a dissociative amnetic state, right? Is you don't remember certain time periods. So I hope that this has explained a little bit more about dissociative disorders, and it hopefully cleared up about the difference between dissociative amnesia, depersonalization, and full-blown multiple personality, which is now dissociative identity disorder. My name is Renda Smith, and thanks for watching.